Good afternoon. My name is Patsy Lewis, and I am the director for the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, located at the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs at Brown University. It is my pleasure to invite Milagros Ricourt to deliver the first talk in our series, Archives of Silence, Archivos del Silencio, which is under the auspices of the Dean of Faculty and sponsored by the Herbert H. Goldberger Lectureship Fund. And it's my pleasure, before we go into today's talk, to introduce my colleague, Dr. Erica Durante, who is the the Director of Undergraduate Studies at Clark's, and who had played a key role in conceptualizing the series. And I would invite her to tell us a little bit about the series and what we're trying to do with the series. And then we would have, I would introduce Professor Ricourt, and then we will start with her talk. So, Erica?
Absolutely. Thank you, Patsy, for this introduction, and thanks everyone for attending this event today. So I'm delighted to present the topic and the general framework of our 2022 lecture series, Archives of Silence, Archivos del Silencio. So the series was proposed by Professor Lewis, Clark Center Manager Kate Goldman, and me, and was awarded funding through the Herbert H. Goldberger Lectureship Fund. So this idea of the lectureship was inspired by our current moment in which we are building the global COVID-19 pandemic archive. This involves assembling and organizing new data, representations, perceptions, and memories of these challenging years. Now, over time, many countries in Latin America and the Caribbean have engaged in a similar archival process related to the authoritarianism and state violence, genocides, and racism that they have suffered during the 20th and 21st centuries. These nations have managed to preserve the memory of those experiences and maintain a collective awareness of these traumatic events through national and personal archives. As the title suggests, the series will address several critical issues related to the creation and preservation of such archives, including censorship, anonymity, sensitivity, and the materiality or immateriality of such archives. As part of an effort to facilitate cross-disciplinary conversations about the present and future archives of recent and contemporary Latin American and Caribbean history, today we are excited to launch our lecture series with this talk by Professor Milagros Ricourt. Professor Ricourt will unravel the complexity of Dominicans' cultural identity through an ethnographic immersion in music, religion, and community organizations. In particular, photographs, which constitute a crucial part of this ethnographic archive, will contribute to rectifying widespread cliché of Dominicans while revealing the uniqueness of their culture. Thank you, Professor Milagros Ricourt, for sharing this visual archive with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. So just a brief introduction to Professor Ricourt. She's a professor of Latin American and Puerto Rican studies at Lehman College, the City University of New York. She's the author of Dominican Racial Imaginary, Women in Latin America, Dominicans in New York, Power from the Margins, and co-author of Hispanas de Queens, Latino Pan-Ethnicity in a New York City Neighborhood. And we're really thrilled to have Professor Ricourt, and welcome to all of you who have taken the time to spend your afternoon with us to hear this talk. Thank you. Please, Professor Ricourt will speak for around half an hour, a little longer, and we will then open up the floor to questions. Please don't wait until she's finished to start posting your questions in the Q&A function. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for inviting me For me, it's an honor to be in front of you. And today I would like to share my ethnography from a different point of view. Are you listening what I'm saying clearly or
We
no?
can hear, yeah.
Okay. Um, in order to present, I would like to draw upon Martinican writer Edouard Glissant, using his images of the mirror. He says that the mirror has two things that you can look in the mirror. It's transparency, how we see ourselves from the Western point of view, and the other one is opacity, the stories that are at the bottom of the mirror, and these that have been silenced by the elite or conservative groups of people. In using these two images, I would like to reformulate the idea that Dominicans are Hispanic and Catholic. Hispanic, Indo, Catholic. So we are a mixture of Indian and Hispanic, Spain. But one thing that is important is not that I'm going to use these categories just by the sake of using them. I believe that in order to understand what Glissant is saying in the framework of the Dominican Republic, we have to immerse ourselves or dive ourselves into ethnography. That metaphor, diving into ethnography, is to observe what's going on in the Dominican Republic from the point of view of people, from the point of view of religion, observe. And there you can start gathering all these silent stories and relate that to history. How the present can actually take us to the origins of this, and at the same time debunking what the elite has been writing and saying about Dominican for centuries, I would say now. So I'm going to start showing you some photographs. Those are the places that I saw when I started my research. A research that actually I was doing this research for years, and I never thought of publishing until I saw the documentary by Dr. Gates, that professor from Harvard, Black in Latin America, where he compared Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And the conclusion is, what he concludes is that Dominican, like the rich culture of Haiti in counterpart with the little culture that Dominican have because they deny their identity. And I don't believe so. I believe that Dominican has, it's a very complex country, but at the same time, where they have several different racial imaginary. Let me start with the photograph. This is the beach of Najayo. Najayo is a municipality of Nigua, San Gregorio de Nigua, from the province of San Cristobal. It's located like 15 miles from the capital city. And this is a very important community because this community, San Cristobal, had the largest concentration of sugar plantation in the 16th century. At the beginning of the 16th century. And we have the ruins, we can see the leftover of the sugar cane in Yaguate, for instance. But we never talk about the impact of this plantation in the identity and the culture of Dominicans. So here, the round green at the bottom is Najayo. The capital city is to the left, and the purple triangle is the community I'm going to be talking about. And I'm coming back to the point, the line that unites both points. Okay. This is a procession, and the procession starts in the beach. That procession is every Saturday, you see that procession, but in a smaller scale. in large scale is on June 13, where they celebrate the anniversary of San Anthony. This is San Anthony inside that box. And San Anthony, the African name of San Anthony is Papalekba. Papalekba is the opener of gates of heaven. So he opens the communication between the mysteries and human beings and God, per se. So these are the flags that they use. This is the Dominican flag. There is another flag, a brown flag, that is a color of San Anthony. So they arrive to this community where people are waiting to celebrate the church. You can see the church to the right. You can see people cooking, talking, even drinking, and coming inside the church, okay? Now, this is the church. When I started my research, the church was made out of wood, and the ceiling was in zinc, a roof, zinc roofed. Now the church is built on concrete, a very nice place. No hurricane, nothing is going to destroy that. It's very, very well constructed. The construction of the church is very interesting. The way the money was raised to rebuild the church. We are a community, Nigua, Nisao. Nisao is more Tubani, more southern. Is one place where there are many young people training themselves to be a baseball player. So every time that they sign one of these guys into, not necessarily the major league, but the AA, and they go from there to the major league, they donate to the church. I can be a person here in New York and I'm gonna open a business. So I go there and I ask San Anthony to make me prosperous in my business, and I'm going to return to him an amount of money. So that's the way they raise the money for that. This is Vladimir, the guy, the Dominican player that was he's in the, what do you say that, in the Hall of Fame of baseball. He's from the community next to the one I'm talking. And he's a very, you can see him when he was announced that he won the position in the Hall of Fame, sitting down with plastic slippers. Here, working in the garden. To the right, to my left, he's talking to people, like he's a regular in the place. And here you see him, like with that powerful bait. So that give you an idea what is this community and how the community is also producing, that a factory of baseball players in the United States. Pedro Martinez is also nearby. This is the altar inside the church. Look, in the case is San Anthony. The flowers, the other saints, all the decoration, a little cross to my left. What is interesting about this is that the center of the church is San Anthony. It's not Jesus Christ. It's not the cross. It's San Anthony. The church went through many different battles between the Catholic Church and the community, and they won. The Catholic Church is outside the church, and they do as they wish with the church, and they continue with the celebration and worshiping San Anthony. These are the music, the drums. These are called palos, the palo drum. And in 2000, the UNESCO actually awarded palos or in one of the cofradías in near the capital city and near this community to the there was awarded an entire, I forgot the name exactly, but they were like a gift for humanity. And why is that? Because you find that drum only in the Dominican Republic or the counterpart in West Africa, specifically Ghana. So this is a very important instrument that they play. They say that the instruments are given to the drummers by the Holy Spirit. So that's the voice of the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit calls the other mysteries, and there is the process of mounting in those mysteries. You know, they become horses of mysteries. Let me show you this. This is my drawing. So it is not perfect, but I use, when I go and do research and do my ethnography, I always draw what I see around. And if I'm missing something, I come back and I continue my drawing. Look, there are mountains around. This is actually, you have to descend. I said decrease. So it's at the bottom between the mountains. It's like something that was going to be a valley, but never came a valley. So it's at the bottom of all these mountains. That little square below the mountains are houses where people live. And all the people living there are relatives. And they are descendant of whoever found this village, you can say that, this settlement. Then you have the church. In front of the church, that a square is what we call enramada, where people gather. They actually play the instruments, the drumming. They play 3 different drums there. Is the Dominican drum, is the palo, and is the valsier. And valsier is very related to Haiti. Then you have 3 crosses in that circle over there. And these 3 crosses are used for people visiting the place to go around 3 times. They go around 3 times, and the 3rd time they light a candle. These little crosses is the cemetery, where you find tombs that they don't have, the date, because they are so old that, and other have disappeared in the cemetery. You have a little river at the bottom of the picture. Then to my right, you're going to see vegetation and more mountains. There is a river. This stuff like cross there is a river, and you have to cross the river. But in order for people visiting, for those believers, practitioners, when they cross the river, they have to go 3 times around the river. They have, like a ritual to continue into that community. And I will ask you, what do you feel what is the resemblance of these to older places in the like in colonial time? Reading the chronicles of the 16th, 17th, 1800s that describe the Maroon villages in the in what is today the Dominican Republic, this is a Maroon village. A Maroon village that probably never changed to anything else. Probably they, when slavery was abolished, they continued living in the same place. And they had developed their own costumes, their own way of being, the family relations of these people, and the leadership of the church. So this is very, very important, because we have other communities in San Cristobal, in Las Matas de Farfán to the south, near the border, where you can find this kind of villages. Now, they are very hidden into the mountains and the forest, and they preserve that that architecture, you can say, because the houses are. The mountains are protecting the house. They have this open space below. So it is a strategy of defense, military defense, when these villages were persecuted by the Spanish authorities. This is another drawing that I made of, below is the road. That's a road. And that's the road taking people from the beach to that community. The name of the community is Caña Andrés, of that little a village there where the church is located. In the road, you're going to see this kind of compounds or settlement. And what is the meaning of this circle? The circle are family, houses. In the middle, you find the house of the elders. The elders are the father, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-grandparents, and great-great-great-grandparents. So they distribute the land to build a house for each of the children. The elders are the one directing. They are the leaders of the community. And not only the leaders, they deserve all the respect from the community. What is important here is that I was reading a description by Bobadilla. Bobadilla was a priest who actually described one Maroon village in Neiva, in the Sierra of Neiva. That's a set of mountains in the south of the Dominican Republic. And he was talking about, who ruled that village, and always are the elders, the one that you have to respect, the one that you have to besar la mano. Besar la mano is a bendición. Ask for the blessing to those people. So every time that they encounter each other, they request the blessing for these two elders. The male is in his almost 100 years. And the female is like around 85, 90 years old. What is important also is that this compound, this relation that they established there, go out of that compound to another compound, because the male elder has another family. And in that other family, he also gives little pieces of land to their children. But there is not the only compound. You found that kind of compound throughout that road until you reach Caña Andrés. I also have observed this kind of structure in other communities in the south of the Dominican Republic. So this is very particular because this resembles the small units that they had during Maroon's year. This is a very, very similar to what Bobadilla described. And then in at the top, you can see, trees. These are the conuco. That's the family conuco. Conuco is a piece of land where you grow plantains, you grow avocado, you grow mangoes, tamarind, tomatoes, okra, and everybody has access to that conuco. So I am fascinated by this thing, and also what is also important is that when one of the members of the family travel outside the United States, like many people migrate to the United States. When some Dominicans in that kind of compound migrate to the United States or to Europe, they send money back to the Dominican Republic where they can build they can build better houses. Like this house in this specific compound, this is made of the one to my right, on top of my right, is made out of wood. but the two to my left are made out of concrete. The one on my right, two on top, is from one of the great grandchild of the elders that lives here in New York. So you can see that. Now you can see a square on top of between the trees and the big house. That's the place where they meet. They can meet for coffee in the afternoon. They meet there for birthdays, celebration of, like when the elders I went there at 75 years of marriage. So they have all the celebration. That's the place where they interact among each other. This is corn. This is a meal made out of corn with goat. This is chenchen with goat, chenchen and chivo. And chenchen is made out of corn. Corn is very important in the Americas and was very important among Amerindians. This is what we call bollo. Bollo is like a tamal, but different, because instead of being wrapped in corn leaf, it's wrapped in with plátano leaf. It doesn't have any stuffing. It's just, like cooking the corn flour with milk and butter and oil, and it's delicious, and you can have it with any other meat. This is cassave. This is made out of yuca. Yuca is manioca. Cassava is yuca is indigenous of the Americas, and this kind of food was made by Indians, by Taínos. So my question is, how do we have that? How do we learn to cook the meal that Taínos used to cook? And the answer is, no mistake there, that these indigenous actually fled to the mountains with Africans. And there they combine, they blend their beliefs. And we don't have Taínos anymore, but we have their food, we have their religion. Religion is very incorporated, what I was saying before about Papalekba, San Anthony. So they have also a division of Indian people, what they call la División India. We preserve all, everything from the indigenous population, like we worship the water in those communities. There are places that are sacred in lakes, little lakes or rivers. So we have, we know what these people used to do. We have incorporated this food into our diet. These are guineos. Guineos are plantains, but the plantains that you ripe and eat, not the plantains that you cook. And we call it guineo. And we call it guineo, and this is something that is hidden for the common knowledge, is because these bananas came from West Africa, specifically from Guinea. So this name has, 400 years or more in the lexicon of Dominican Guineo, coming from Guinea. So we see that observing, going into this community, we learn things that are hidden, that nobody knows, but are the things moving the nation, the things that we Dominicans, not only in the South, but throughout the country, we do, and we don't know where that comes from. I'm going to finish reading one part of my book, where I actually to conceptualize what I saw. So if you can here, the Dominican Republic is not the most Spanish nation in the America or the oldest Christian people of the Americas. There is an under-knowledge and parallel imaginary, however, that has resisted the imposition of these values, which kept ancestral Dominicans in physical slavery and their descendants in prolonged psychological denial. These submerged values survive as well in religion, aesthetic, and peasant movement and other forms of resistance in the 20th century as they continue today. This is important because not only creates new knowledge, but also we have been isolated from the entire Caribbean. We are the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, and we don't relate to the English-speaking Caribbean because the idea that we are white, that we hate Haitians, has been so spread out, and specifically by the academic world. There are many books saying that, and people believe that. So we need to take that out. We need to let people know that we are also part of the open boat, that we also cross the Atlantic, and we also creolize the Atlantic with what we found in the Americas. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Professor Ricourt. Just seeing the flashes of food that are so recognizable to me. I grew up with my mother fixing cassava, just like that.
Yes.
I grew up with a version of your tamales, like thing that we call conky, that is sweet. We sweeten ours, we put raisins, coconut milk, pumpkin, and we boil it in banana leaves. Yes. So, and of course, Trinidad and the Latin, Venezuela and that coast have pastels, which is a savory one that's mixed with meat. So there's so much there that is recognizable. But so what you have done is to counter the narrative that Dominicans don't see themselves as African descended. But it's almost as if you're saying that that's a perception that is imposed on the country. And this idea that Haitians are hated by Dominicans because they're Black and Dominicans aren't is something that's constructed outside of the DR. But is that really the case, especially when you look at conscious official attempts to whiten the Dominican Republic over the years? How do you reconcile these retentions, these African retentions that are obviously still very much there and at the forefront, but in a sense, they almost, the way in which you describe them, they still seem to be a marginal part of the landscape, hidden in mountainous terrain, almost like known to a small group of people. How do you reconcile that with the national image, what is projected as the Dominican Republic?
Yes, I don't believe that idea of Dominican came from outside. It was created by people inside the Dominican Republic for centuries. Even before independence, there was this generalized hate against France, and many criollos and mulattoes too actually resented that the richness of the colony, the French colony in the other side of the island. So that developed into a group of people that have been gathering knowledge, first to hate France and then to hate Haitians. We developed, but that dominant class developed the same discourse of the colonial powers. And we have the father of Dominican history, changing the history completely. Then you have another guy writing a novel where he actually established that Dominicans are, through the novels, the idea is to create this homogenic idea of Dominicans as Indo-Hispanic. Then you have Trujillo, who actually put into practice all this negative ideology, this racism, and actually declared Dominicans to be Indo-Hispanic. And he also killed thousands of Haitians in the border. But that has been the idea. And then you have other people like today, when Danilo Medina, the president, actually with some authorities, they wanted to deprive Haitians of their nationality. That is a civil genocide. So that's the image that we portray to the outside. So people come to the Dominican Republic, that was in the past, I hope it doesn't happen again, and they write, but they write from the perspective of these people, believing that all Dominicans think the same way. And that's not true. We have different racial imaginaries. As you can see in those people that I was describing, and let me give you one example. In that compound that I draw, this village compound, there was a little girl in one of the houses, and she came to the grandmother, and she said to the grandmother, "Oh, I dreamt of San Anthony." And the grandmother said, "No, that's not true. What is the color of San Anthony?" And she said, "Black." Oh, okay, that was San Anthony. So we're talking about San Anthony of Padua that is white, but they identify San Anthony as black. So we are not saying that they are practicing something that they don't know. There is a very strong identity there that they are not from Spain, they are not indigenous, they are black from Africa. I was talking to a woman in one of these celebrations, and I said, "Where is this coming from?" "Oh, from Africa." So it's like what I call burlesque mulattoes. The burlesque mulattoes are those Dominicans who actually believe that they're white. So they try to, the transparency in the mirror, they have created this idea that Dominicans are Hispanic and Indio. If I had my hair straight, I will be a Taino descent. That's happening a lot. With these light mulattoes with straight hair, it's not a combination of African and white. It's a combination of Spanish and Taino. So we are responsible, the Dominican elite is responsible for this idea of Dominican being, in denial and hating, Haiti for this racism.
Thank you. I want to invite our audience to please write your questions in the Q&A function. Erica, did you want to ask a question? Your sound is off.
Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Yeah, I may have one. Thank you so much, Milagros, for this, for sharing with us this field work, which I guess is also still in progress. And yeah, I was very interested by the way in which you have framed everything by referring to Blisson, who was himself an ethnographer, right? And at a certain point, while I was following your ethnographic study through the drawings and through all the observation that you made, I also felt that somehow this ethnographic process, ethnographic field work connects to archaeology. So you are somehow, right, resurrecting the maps of original Maroon villages, some of the original structures that have survived over time, right? So this was like, how do you frame your own ethnographic work beyond the metaphor of the mirror and opacity and transparency in this relationship to archaeology? And also, if what you have found in your field work can also be applied to other areas of the island, or if it's only to this particular one that you have studied?
No. It's widespread in the Dominican Republic. There are places like in the north that, because they have all these migration from the Canary Island, people are very light skinned, so they don't care about this. And also because Trujillo was very specific in actually persecuting anybody, you know, playing these instruments or doing these kind of things in this in El Cibao, what we call El Cibao in the north. But throughout the Dominican Republic in the east and the entire southeast and southwest, you find this. And what is very sad is that many of these monument ruins, people have constructed on top of them. And, you know, in order for you to actually do excavation that can tell you, you know, the diet of the slaves, you know, the time that they die, all these important things is buried on top of, you know, top you have houses, entire towns there. Like for instance, something that you can do is the cemetery. But nobody has done that. You can actually prove that that was a Maroon village just by excavating people and building, you know, like with all these advances in science, with DNA, you can actually know that these were slaves there. But nobody, the only person that actually is doing something like that is an historian from here, from New York, that he invited a group of students, and they're doing some excavation in one former plantation. But they haven't found a lot. They have found, you know, like vessels, some instruments, but they haven't found something, you know, important. In order for you to do that, is like you have to do a revolution in the Dominican Republic. And, you know,
Right.
not a revolution of people fighting, but a mental revolution where the cultural ministry and people involved can actually engage in something that big.
Because it would be like somehow to rebuild a history of desaparecidos, no?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the Guatemalan women did in Guatemala.
Exactly.
But Professor Ricourt, don't you think that this might be changing, especially among younger people, and in the way in this period of social unrest and a greater recognition of the value of Blackness and the ways in which Blackness is devalued? Don't you think that do you see any sense that among younger Dominicans that this perception might be changing and there might be a more openness to embracing Blackness?
Absolutely. I was talking to a doctoral student from University of Massachusetts before this forum, and she was telling me that she wanted to go to the Dominican Republic and do her dissertation on Voodoo, Dominican Voodoo. That's a recognition that there is Voodoo in the Dominican Republic. That's a recognition that it's coming from Africa. But inside the Dominican Republic, there is this movement of women wearing the natural hair. That's also, you know, recognizing that we don't have to actually straighten our hair with chemical, that we are beautiful the way we are. The other thing is that these are things that we have as Black people, you know, little, I don't know how you call it, that people erase. So some people are, they are talking about beauty marks.
Yeah.
You're saying there are beauty marks, you know, using the same expression of many people from Africa. There is an institute, the Bono, Francisco Bono Institute, and the leaders of that institute are the Jesuits, very progressive Jesuits. And they are encouraging people to do research. They are translating my book. They already translated the book of Anne Ellen about the War of Restoration. So there is a movement there to actually show the people that people are doing this research, that we know this. And there is a very positive response. Every time that I go there, I get more enthusiastic about that idea that the young people are changing the country.
Patsy, we cannot hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. It looked like you were about to say something, so I wasn't sure. Okay. But I noticed Professor Cherry is in the audience, and his department has a fascinating series looking at archaeology in the Eastern Caribbean. And there was a really fascinating discussion last week about the threats from climate change, from sea level rise to archaeological sites. And what you described a minute ago was a kind of willful or deliberate paving over that past, not necessarily because of, I mean, it's not incidental to climate change, an effect of climate change, or even, which is very insidious, being sacrificed to the economic imperative. But this is like a deliberate cultural erasure, which is particularly troubling. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you want to jump in with a question, but it would be great. I'll comment.
No, well, yes, I was a little confused. I wasn't a question or a comment.
A comment.
But that's very important. What you said is I'm thinking about that still, you know. But the climate change is important, but also it's important that we have buried that. Not bury in terms of, you know, portraying that in books or teaching young children, but also in terms of allowing to bury that with farming, houses. It's awful. It's awful. And we have a richness of, you know, information there, knowledge there that is so important, because that will open the door to understand that the Dominican Republic was like the threshold of slavery, the threshold of genocide of indigenous population, and resistance. This guy, Richard Price, I believe is his name, that wrote the book Maroons. He, in the introduction, he says that the first African who traveled with Ovando to Hispaniola in 1502 ran away. He ran away from the boat. So there are important stories there that not only can link us to the Haitian Revolution, you know, but I would love to see somebody doing research about the interaction between Spanish Maroons and slaves during that period of time. But it's women. Even in the emancipation of women, how women are so important in these communities. How they are so important. The vice president of the Dominican Republic visited one of these women in the community, because she's the center woman there. She's the one who knows. She's the one making decisions. So it's extremely important, very, very important.
I have another question, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wanted to go back to the worship of Saint Anthony, and in the way in which it has been like metabolized compared to the initial icon that you reminded, like Anthony of Padua. And then you quickly mentioned somehow disagreement between the local community and the Catholic Church, right? By saying like the Catholic Church like dissociated itself from this particular worship and let the community continue to worship St. Anthony in this particular way. So my question is about this relationship between like local communities and the Catholic Church, because we were talking before about Guatemala, and in the case of Guatemala, like many indigenous villages and communities that were dispossessed from their own lands, from the Catholic Church, and they had their own Catholic cofradias, right, brotherhood, are in the same kind of conflict with the Catholic Church still today. So the relationship between these communities and the Catholic Church is also related to the land, this possession of the land in Dominican Republic, or it's more about, you know, like matters of ritual and worships. And also another question, I mean, why do you think that Saint Anthony, more than any other saint or any other, I don't know, like virgin, has been monopolized by the people in the island?
It has to do with the emergence of this religion, because what they did in Voodoo, in the Dominican Voodoo specifically, is that they actually mask their African deities with Catholic saints. Right. So they found something that actually was part of, you know, like, St. James, for instance. St. James is a warrior. So St. James became the warrior in Voodoo and belongs to a family. St. Anthony is more tender with the child and the baby, so he's more willing to listen. You know, so it is not that they choose that because, you know, we like St. Anthony. No, there is a reason for that, and all of them are masked in saints. However, during the in mid late 1700, in the 1800 were very important because there was a group of people coming from Africa that they were new to Hispaniola, specifically coming to Haiti, what is today Haiti, and a small part to what is today the Dominican Republic. They were the Congos. And the Congos developed their own deities. And these deities doesn't have a Catholic counterpart. Because when they came, you know, the reality was different. So they didn't have to do that. So they have, you know, or the African name of the name, a native name, because they were Creole also. They, you know, like the Petrov family, for instance. The Petrov family is a family created in the island. Doesn't have a counterpart with
Catholicism.
Africa. So all these deities are very fierce, they're very brave, because they were fighting, you know, that was in the midst of the revolution. So they're very mean. They kill, you know, like when you want to kill somebody, you go to a Petro, for instance. No, I'm not saying that, but for instance, you know, that family is very, those deities are very
powerful.
Yeah, powerful. And there are women there, very powerful women in that family, very powerful women.
And are there many families like that?
What? I'm
Are there many families like that? Or is this something that's pretty unique?
No, it's unique. It's unique. Probably you find out here or there, but it's unrelated. But the family is the nation. They call it nation, the group of deities.
Right.
Of the different Voodoo nations and Voodoo family. And that family in specifically is called the Petro.
Oh, okay.
But it's not like a family. It's like a group of, what they call mysteries or loises. Loi of mystery. Yeah. The saints.
Syncretism is pretty common when a religion is being actively persecuted. So you find ways to merge with the dominant religion to gain acceptability while still holding on to your beliefs. And, you know, it's fascinating to hear how that operates in practice.
Yeah.
Do we have
Yes.
Sorry, you were saying.
No, the Catholic Church, in the community, there is one Catholic Church. And that Catholic Church don't allow many of these practitioners to go into the church.
Wow.
And what happening in Caña Andres with San Antonio is that before there was a council that was very with the theology of liberation. Before that, the priests were, you know, like they didn't care if they were saints in the church. But the new Catholic priests of the theology of liberation, they dislike the saints. So the fight with the community, it's very interesting because, you know, like this is a very liberal thing in the Catholic Church, but at the same time, the respect for culture wasn't there. So the fight was with these priests, and they got sick and tired of the community, and they left. And the community took control of the church. So it's more than that. There are many stories, you know.
And this happens in many Latin American countries, indeed. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Fascinating. It deserves a story in its own right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience?
I don't see any at the moment.
Because if we don't, I think we can draw the evening to a close. Unless you had another question, Erica.
No.
But yes, I really want to thank Milagros. This was fascinating, and it will be on our website. So students can access it, faculty, you know, whoever has the interest can access it in their own time. And I definitely will be drawing it to the attention of my Caribbean class. Yeah, as well. And before we go, I just want to say, for those of the few of you still with us, I know it's a difficult time of the evening, that please join us on February 23rd at 10 o'clock for the second discussion in a series, Alternative Grammars of Anti-Racism in Latin America, and by Monica Moreno Figueroa, who is from Cambridge University, and Peter Wade from the University of Manchester. So thank you so very much, Professor Ricourt, for opening our series with this really fascinating presentation. Thank you so
Thank you for inviting me.